Hey guys, Jared here, and today we're going to compare the Nexus 5X and the Nexus 6P smartphones against each other. Obviously we expect the 6P to come out on top, but at what cost? Can the cheaper priced 5X compete? Let's find out. So let's start off with the physical differences between the two phones. The most obvious thing is the size difference. The smaller Nexus 5X is a 5.2-inch screen device, while the larger Nexus 6P is 5.7 inches. This may not sound like much, but the difference is quite significant. While in my opinion, both phones definitely require two hands to properly operate, with larger hands you may be able to use most of the 5X without too many issues. The larger size makes the 6P quite a bit longer. I've had difficulty fitting it into some of my pockets, which can lead to it sliding out when sitting down quite easily when compared to the 5X. The 6P can also be a bit more awkward to hold one-handed as it's much taller. The 6P is definitely much nicer to pick up and hold. The solid aluminium body of the heavier 6P, which comes in at 178 grams, is very premium and solid feeling in comparison to the plastic and lighter 5X, which comes in at 136 grams. The extra weight to the 6P makes it feel tougher. It doesn't feel like a heavy device, as the weight seems to be quite evenly spread around the large size of the phone. The aluminium body of the 6P also has the advantage of hiding fingerprint marks quite well when compared to the 5X, which is quite a fingerprint magnet. It can look bad pretty easily. The 6P also has the antenna band marks around the edges, while the 5X does not. In terms of color options, the 5X comes in carbon, quartz, or ice colors, while the 6P comes in aluminium, graphite, or frost colors. In this video, I have the carbon 5X and the graphite 6P. Both phones have their nano SIM card trays on the left-hand side, while the right has the power button followed by the volume up and down buttons underneath. The 6P has a rough textured surface to its power button, which makes it easier to feel out the difference between the buttons with your finger when you're fumbling around for it, while the power button on the 5X in comparison is completely smooth and flat, just like the volume buttons, making it harder to differentiate the two based purely on touch. Both phones also have the USB Type-C port on the bottom for charging and transferring data. However, the 5X has its 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom of the phone, while the 6P has its on top. Both phones have a fingerprint scanner on the back, and in my testing I haven't been able to notice any differences at all in how long it takes for the phone to unlock after placing my finger on the scanner. It's very quick and completes in under a second on both phones. Both phones also make use of the same rear-facing 12.3 megapixel camera, which features an f2.0 aperture with infrared laser assisted autofocus, 4K 30fps video, and dual flash. As mentioned in my previous videos on these specific phones, the camera quality is excellent on both. As the same camera is in use on both phones, if your priority is for the camera, the 5X may be a good option for you as a cheaper alternative. The front-facing cameras are a little bit different. The 6P provides a slightly better 8 megapixel camera with an f2.4 aperture capable of shooting HD video at 30fps, while the 5X has a 5 megapixel camera with an f2.0 aperture also capable of shooting HD video at 30fps. While the sensor on the 6P is larger, the 5X has a higher aperture, meaning more light can be let in, potentially resulting in less grainy images. In my opinion, both don't look all that great anyway, at least when compared to the amazing rear camera, which seems to be pretty standard with front-facing cameras. However, the images from the 6P are noticeably better compared to the 5X regarding the front-facing camera. The glass on the front screen also differs in that the Nexus 5X is using Gorilla Glass 3, while the Nexus 6P is using Gorilla Glass 4. This gives the screen of the 6P an increased resistance to cracking, meaning that it may better survive a drop compared to the 5X. The 6P also has a glass-covered camera bump on the back, which has made me a bit uneasy every time I go to put it down, as I'm worried about smashing the glass if I put the phone down too hard. The 5X in comparison has a plastic camera bump, so I don't have this same worry. However, as the bump on the 5X is only in the middle of the phone, if I'm using the phone while it's laid down on a flat surface, it wobbles from side to side. The 6P does not experience this, as the camera bump runs along the whole top of the phone evenly, so it's able to remain stable while in use. Both the 5X and 6P have LED notification lights available, well, but only after you activate them in Android. I have a video covering how to do this linked in the video description if you're interested. The LED of the 6P is towards the top left, while the 5X has its LED within the speaker grill down the bottom. The LED light of the 6P also seems to be quite a bit smaller compared to the light of the 5X. Speaking of speakers, the grill area on the bottom of the 5X is where its one front-facing loudspeaker is found. Although it looks like it could have two speakers, as the top grill looks exactly the same, it has just the single speaker, while the 6P has two front-facing speakers. In my testing, the audio quality from the 6P sounds noticeably better when compared to the single speaker of the 5X. In terms of call quality, the 6P definitely sounds better to me. Both sounded great, however, in my opinion, the 6P was just a little bit clearer. Now that we've covered the physical external components of the phones, let's move on to the internal components and device specs. The screen on the 5X is a 5.2-inch 1080p LCD display, which results in 423 pixels per inch, while the screen on the 6P is a 5.7-inch 1440p AMOLED display at 518 pixels per inch. In my opinion, both displays look great in terms of resolution. The difference between 423 and 518 pixels per inch is very hard for me to notice unless I put my eye up right to the screen, so in a normal use scenario, both phones look very sharp and clear. In my opinion, the colors of the 6P look a little bit better and are more saturated compared to the 5X. There's also the difference between the AMOLED display on the 6P and the LCD display on the 5X, as black pixels on the AMOLED screen actually turn off completely, providing it with higher contrast, and this is quite noticeable when viewing dark content. It just looks better on the 6P. The viewing angles are extremely good on both phones, however I think the 5X has a very slight edge here. After a point, seeing more pixels doesn't provide much advantage in terms of what you can actually see. However, it will increase battery drain as you have more pixels to push, as this will put additional strain on the GPU. I haven't experienced any lag with either device, so I think the specs within are good enough to provide a smooth experience in each case. The 5X makes use of a Qualcomm Snapdragon 808 processor, which is a 1.8 GHz hexa-core 64-bit CPU, while the 6P is using a Qualcomm Snapdragon 810, which is a 2.0 octa-core 64-bit CPU. The CPU in the 6P is clocked slightly higher and has two additional cores. After running the Passmark benchmark, the 5X got a score of 107,847, while the 6P received 127,354. Various CPU operations tested performed a little better on the 6P as expected, which I think is a little noticeable when opening applications. I've tested this by opening the same applications on both devices, and while some take around the same amount of time, the 6P is always ahead and usually gets there first. In terms of graphics, the 5X makes use of the ADRENO 418 GPU, while the 6P is using an ADRENO 430 GPU. As mentioned, both are more than capable of pushing the large amounts of pixels available and perform fairly well in games. The Passmark benchmark showed that the 6P performed better in terms of synthetic graphics testing. An interesting difference is that the 5X has 2GB of LPDDR3 RAM, while the 6P has 3GB of LPDDR4 RAM. So the 6P has both faster and more memory here, so expect to be able to run more applications at once and faster here when compared to the lower and slower amount in the 5X. The better CPU and memory help the 6P perform better at multitasking compared to the 5X. The Passmark benchmark showed that the 5X was able to write to memory at 838 megabytes per second and read from memory at 2,513 megabytes per second. The 6P, on the other hand, performed writes to memory at 1,017 megabytes per second and reads at 3,171 megabytes per second, demonstrating that the 6P is both faster at retrieving information out of memory and storing information into memory. Battery life is also where things get quite interesting. The 5X has a 2,700 mAh battery, while the 6P has a larger 3,450 mAh battery. Both phones support fast charging, where the 5X can get a 4-hour charge in just 10 minutes, while the 6P can get a 7-hour charge in 10 minutes. In my testing, I get multiple days use out of both phones. Although the 5X has a smaller battery, it also has less powerful hardware to run when compared to the 6P, resulting in great battery life for both devices. However, the battery does last noticeably longer on the 6P. I've run both phones down to 1% battery charge and then fully charged them with their included wall outlet charger and USB-C cable to give you an idea of how long this took to complete with a new battery. While this is definitely not a perfect test, as I did power the screen on very quickly once each minute to record the battery level shown, I think it does serve as a good approximate average. While the test was performed, background applications were closed and the phone was not otherwise used. The 5X started off faster, which is kind of expected as it has a smaller battery capacity to charge. However, despite a good start, the smaller battery of the 5X actually took longer to reach 100%. The 6P took 95 minutes to reach 100%, while the 5X took 99 minutes. While this is not a large difference, keep in mind that the 6P has a larger battery. As shown in my graph, the 5X was ahead until the 98% point. We can also see the point of diminishing returns begins around the 60% mark for both phones. That is where it starts to take longer and longer to actually charge more. In regards to wireless connectivity, both the 5X and 6P support all current Wi-Fi standards, including 802.11a, b, g, n, and AC, with dual-band 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz available. In addition to this, both also provide Bluetooth 4.2 and NFC. In terms of storage, the 5X is available in 16GB and 32GB options, while the 6P is available in 32, 64, and 128GB options. Both phones don't have any additional storage options, so if you need any more than 32GB of storage, the 6P will likely be what you'll want. After running the Passmark benchmark to determine the I/O speeds of both phones, the 5X resulted in 263 MB per second write speed and 366 MB per second on the read speed. The 6P performed better with 314 MB per second write speed and 410 MB per second read speed. I don't think this difference is very significant. Yes, files may open and save a little snappier on the 6P, but I don't believe it will be very easy to notice. In my testing of opening up random photos, both took around the same amount of time. So overall, how is the actual user experience with both phones? Both have worked very well, with a slight edge going to the 6P. Both phones have been very responsive to use, owing to the good specs and clean Android experience that the Nexus series of devices are well known for. Of course, being Nexus devices, we can also expect relatively quick Android updates and newer features sooner when compared to other Android devices on the market, which means that both the 5X and 6P should be running the latest and greatest version of Android for some time to come. While actually holding and using the phones, I found I was more comfortable holding the 5X in terms of the overall size and how likely I felt that I was going to drop the phone. This is purely because of the larger size of the 6P. It's quite a tall phone, and although I have gotten used to it, it can be a little awkward to hold and use, especially with smaller hands. However, it does feel a lot nicer to hold due to the weight and materials. I haven't noticed either phone slipping in my hands at all, despite the differences between the plastic and aluminium bodies. I wouldn't consider either material to be slippery. Unlocking the phone with the fingerprint scanner is an absolute breeze. There's no delay and the process happens very fast. So in conclusion, while there are a lot of differences between the Nexus 5X and 6P, there are also a lot of similarities. The 5X is a smaller phone with decent specs and great battery life, while the 6P is a larger phone with excellent specs and amazing battery life. Both phones have the same camera, which performs very well. If the camera is important to you but you can't justify the cost of the 6P, the 5X may be a better option as it's cheaper and has the same camera. If you want the high-end specs and don't mind paying a premium for them, then the 6P is likely a better option for you as it has a larger battery, faster CPU, faster GPU, faster memory, larger storage options, and faster I/O speeds, and a better screen. Personally, I prefer the higher end specs of the 6P, and I'm able to overlook the other downsides that I wasn't so keen on, such as the larger size and higher price. I wanted a phone that would perform very well for some time to come, and I'm glad that I've picked it over the 5X. At the same time, I can see the value that the 5X provides, and it's a pretty good phone with a lot to offer at its price point. So which phone would you guys prefer between the Nexus 5X and 6P? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. I've reviewed both of them previously, so if you're after further information on either phone, check out the links in the video description. Also leave a like or dislike on the video to let me know if you like this type of phone comparison video, and don't forget to subscribe for future videos like this one.